be my, how do we get past that? How do we get them? That's why I'm hoping the API changes alleviate some of those things. So.
I have a box of Magic cards here. I got something like a massive box just full of
Nice.
Magic cards. I have all of these here. And that's the exact reason why I don't unbox these and play this game, because I have this perception that the investment required for me to get to the point of enjoyment with this game is too high. And I understand that Magic is a very enjoyable game, and I already have the cards, but there is that perception of a massive amount of investment that I have to overcome first to get into it. There are certain things that will kind of weed out the players who won't enjoy the game long term, and I don't think that's too much of a problem, like being killed by Howrake and Brutus and stuff like that. Those are fine. There are things that weed out players that could enjoy the game, and that is a problem. I think trade might be one of those, and I certainly think things like desync and the early game being a little too slow and not having many skills available to you early game and stuff like that. Those were things which GGG has been improving over time that weeded out players that would actually enjoy the game long term. There was just kind of this initial point of confusion, what's this game's deal, because it wasn't there. And I think trade might be one of those, because trading in Path of Exile is very good, but it is hard to get over that initial hurdle, and that is weeding out a lot of players that might actually enjoy trading. Because I, through my various guides and things like that I make for trading, people will come to me regularly and say, "Hey, I finally installed Acquisition. I followed your guide for trading, whatever. I did this thing," and I was like, I made 25 chaos today in a couple hours, and I'm having a great time. I'm loving trading now. I'm getting super into it, and they're enjoying the game a whole lot more. So there are a lot of people who are being weeded out from enjoying the trading system that would actually enjoy it right now.
Right. And go ahead, Morris.
No, go ahead.
Well, what I was about to say is, and really, in all honesty, who's to blame players for not wanting to jump into a game, learn its mechanics, and then have an easier time playing Path of Exile? Who's to blame them? Because, what's normal for people who've been playing it for a while, who people who are really into it, because the people who are really into action RPGs and into Path of Exile, they're playing it. If we want to get those new players, it should be a little bit more appealing. And again, who's to blame them for not wanting to have to go to a third-party website, have to install a third-party program, contact people? There's so many steps for failure, or there's so many steps that a player has to take to do it as efficiently as possible. And I don't blame them for that. Even though I don't think anything of it, I don't blame them for it.
Here's I guess, I'll throw out my own thought experimental question for you guys is do you think that if GGG were to incorporate the features of acquisition and PoE trade in-game and in-browser, in their entirety exactly as they are right now, I feel like maybe Wobber, you can answer this question because of your position on it, but I feel like that is very close to being an auction house, right? If you bring those two things together and put them in the game, is that basically an auction house, at least in the sense that auction houses are typically used, like in Diablo, where you're not actually auctioning much, you're mostly buying things? And then if you have especially offline trading, asynchronous trading, or cross-instance trading and things like that, is that basically an auction house? And do you think that would, like Morse was talking about earlier, help level the playing field? Because at the moment we have access to these features. They're just over a hurdle. You have to kind of climb a steep, shitty-looking hill covered with rocks that are rolling down and shit before you get to that point.
Yeah, I think that would be, because on top of that, you get a player, you get someone who, they see right now with the Ascendancy coming out. We were having all this press on GameSpot. So we have a person who hasn't played an action RPG in a long time. Say they haven't played one since Diablo 2 for whatever reason, right? And they see Path of Exile. When they get into the game and they see a lot of things, if there was a tool for them to list their tabs, the same way you do an acquisition, they would immediately be like, oh, how do I use this? But since they don't ever see that tool, they're not aware of how easy it could be.
There is nothing in the game that points to how you trade in Path of Exile.
Exactly.
You get a lot of new people joining and be like, they open trade chat because that's the only thing they see that says trade in game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so
they're like, this is how we're supposed to trade?
Yeah, and while that might essentially just be an auction house, or what we know as an auction house, that would work. Just having these tools in the game would work.
So that's my question then. Do we not already have an auction house in PoE? It's just for the elite who have taken the effort to learn how to use it. Like, is that
Yeah,
Is that
it's
not
just out
what
of client. It's just out of client. It's just in a browser and in a third-party program.
I mean, you could get caught up on semantics and say, well, it's not technically an auction house and yada yada, but it's the same thing. Diablo 3's auction house was barely an auction house because most people were just doing buyouts. Most people were just listing their item. I want 50,000 gold for this, or I want 20 chaos for this, and then someone clicks the buy button and it's automatically shifted across. Like, maybe the current system, if implemented directly into the game, would still have players like meet each other in an instance or open a trade window with each other and communicate in some fashion. But if GG does implement the other features they're looking to implement of asynchronous trading, then it is essentially going to be the exact same thing as an auction house. So I feel like we're almost already there. It's just there's just no way to find it for a lot of players.
In fact, I think that if we had something like that, if we actually did have this in the game, there would be more bidding. There would be actual auctioning in Path of Exile because of the way our currency works. I mean, so you might be like, okay, like, oh yeah, I'll raise this up to 35, and eventually just gets the buyout. But we have tons of items that are like that. I mean, that's. I feel like there's a lot more room for an auction house to work well in Path of Exile. It's just hard.
Well, the funny part to me is how it's sort of a stigma around auction house. Like,
Yeah.
I want to call it banana, and then everyone likes bananas or apples or something, and then it'll be great. And I mean, I know that's.
I know, when we call it
ridiculous.
asynchronous trade system overhaul, people are like, yeah, bring that on.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's not-
but it's going to be exactly the same as the auction house. Like, no, did you say auction house?
you don't get it.
And it's just because of Diablo 3's launch was shitty that people
Yeah.
associate auction house with being bad. Even though that was maybe not. I don't know if the auction house was actually the problem. I think it was actually the loot system in Diablo 3 that was the problem.
Yes, thank you, God. I mean, that's what drives me so crazy. The problem is the fundamental architecture upon which the game is based. ARPGs are gear-based games, so if the gear sucks because it was designed by an idiot, yes, the whole thing's gonna suck. PoE is so much better designed. That's why I hate when we're just like, no, we can't have this. When we have it right now, all I want to do is improve quality of life for people, because that's, to me, like, that's the key. Lately, at least, that's the key, because PoE has been winning for I would say, okay, so do they do everything right all the time? No, no one does. Nobody does. But their trend is clearly upward. Right? We like more and more people are watching on Twitch, more and more people are playing. At least that's what I think. And it's
And I
all
think
about.
that's a good thing for the game overall as well. Like, there's a debate about whether more and more people is a good thing for PoE, whether it loses its way. And there are always going to be some people who are put out by certain changes, like you for Masters, for example.
Right. Yeah. No.
But I think
fine.
overall it's a good thing, though.
I hope that I hope they continue with it. And it's definitely one of those things where it's funny that people were calling for the trading thing, and I still remember when I saw you, because I actually think you said, well, I don't know if it was the first time you said it, but it was in State of Exile or the podcast where you'd said that you think trading is the number one thing, which surprised me, because I was like, that sounds like something I would say, not necessarily Ziggy would say so strongly, and I think the desync thing was clearly the right fix, and it's interesting. It's interesting to
I agree with that now.
Okay, and I 100. I mean, I 100% agree. I was. It's funny. I don't care about the desync fix because I was so. To me, it was a body 300 yards down the river. I was never going to think about it again. I never thought they would fix desync, so I was just like, gonna have to live with this.
In that state.
Right. It's So I'm thrilled. I think they did things right, and I hope that we get that small change that they say they're doing, because to me, it's weird. It's one of those things where it's not even that they need to do something. I sometimes feel like, I think it's just even psychological, just for people to see something was done, even if it's a small thing that only cost 1/10 of a Jonathan unit, as I would call it, whatever. Right? We don't need a total Jonathan unit. We need 1/10 of his unit for the month, to allotted time to make this thing, and then people feel better because something got done and more stuff's happening. Anyway, that's
I think we could all benefit from a bit of a touch by 1/10 of Jonathan's unit.
Yeah, it's
He does work with it. He does God's work with it.
right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, on that, I feel like we do kind of get that with trade right now. We do get these little things. Well, at least they said that they're working on little things. They're saying they're improving the API for third-party developers and saying that, but that doesn't seem like it's enough for a lot of people, and it's just like desync was huge, right? That was a huge quality of life improvement for Path of Exile, and I had people that I knew that didn't play Path of Exile specifically because of desync. So I tell them, hey, desync's gone. Guess what? They're still, then they want to try it. But trade is now like the second thing, and there are still the people who enjoy it. There's still the people who think there's nothing wrong with it. And it's just like it's really just, it comes down to like a player's personal preference. And is it just because of all the other games that we've had in the past? I mean, where was the first big auction house? My first big experience with it was in World of Warcraft. That was my first experience with auction house, mailboxes, and all that stuff seems really cool. But it just seems, to me initially, although we do essentially already have it, seems a little out of place. But I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Isn't that just the vagaries of the human condition, that we're kind of dicks and we always want something? Like, desync was fixed, great, man. That was last month, even though that was a huge deal. We're like, I want this next thing. I always I always want to make sure I like think positive thoughts, even if I might rant about it for a little bit. I want to think positive thoughts because there's good things are happening. That said, I definitely am nervous about if they did something with an auction house or something like that, is just the fact that they did it because there just seems to be this very vitriolic element in the community. Will that affect other people who were sort of on the fence? Is it almost not worth it doing it just because there's enough of a backlash?
Because they hear that they put an auction house in PoE and they just like, oh, but that sounds terrible because of Diablo 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like, I'm definitely cognizant of that, and I hope that, this is where I wish GGG shared a little more. Which of course people would say, wait, GGG shares a lot of stuff all the time. I think that they're not as stupid as Blizzard, but Blizzard still shares a lot of stuff. Like if you go and look at it, just is so much longer between when you get a blue post, right? Chris is every day, which is what makes him really cool, and why me personally, why I invested money in the game, because of someone like Chris. But they still keep stuff back, and I do think partially because if they shared what they were thinking or doing, there'd be people who would yell at them, like, why are you doing this? But I feel like
you definitely shouldn't tell people everything you're doing. I think, as much as I love GGG's communication, if they told people everything that they were planning on doing with trade and that, then there is the potential that before people even have a chance to even see how it's implemented, they have a backlash towards it, and that spoils it poisons the well before they even draw water from it, essentially.
Isn't that just under promise, over deliver?
Well, yeah, that's what they did with desync, right?
Definitely.
We're improving it.
It's like out of nowhere, we're finally at the point where we can tell you that we're actually going to fix desync. It was like, what? We didn't even know you were even trying.
Right. Yeah. Which then, and things like that makes me very hopeful for it. But then that goes back to like, have we lost too many players to something like trade, or people so caught up on their frustrations with it now that they're not even going to look past it?
That every major expansion and every major marketing push for the game is one step closer to this imaginary too late point for trade improvements.
Yes.
Like I was worried about that with the last expansion, but the desync fixes and that were more than enough, I think, so that. But now I'm worried with this next expansion, like there's a big marketing push and this is going to be a big influx of new players, tapping that imaginary maximum amount of potential Path of Exile players. And if trade isn't heavily improved by that point, then I'm a bit worried that it'll be too late beyond that.
Well, and it's interesting because I actually think, I've been sort of reflecting on this, I think that people don't quit PoE in the sense of trading, nothing's happening, so I'm done with PoE. They're done with the league or the challenge league earlier than they were before, is what it seems like a little bit to me. Because I went and played D3 and I came back and I was like, oh, nobody's trading anymore. I used to get 10, 15 whispers a day, and I was down to 1 or 2, and then trying to buy stuff, nobody was there. and I'd go to their thread and last updated January 24th or something. So that means they're not playing on a daily basis. So I feel like it's an interesting point that you bring up. The too late point, I feel like, has probably happened a little bit, just in the sense of people move their quit date up a little sooner in the league. And unfortunately, since PoE is a great pyramid scheme, right? If I want to do Uber Atziri, I need 100 vassals out there farming the things to let me do that.
Yeah.
So when they revolt and kill each other or leave, I can't be a king of nothing, right? So then you can't
Means you're
participate.
crown king nothing.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh man, it's so crazy to me because I had so much fun playing Talisman. I know it's not what we're talking about, but I had a lot of fun this league. But I felt like the pain of trying to either organize the talismans thing, because that's what I always find. Whenever there's something where trading is involved as a core concept in the league, that's where it seems to the league gets hurt. Like Tempests. Well, okay, with trading and Tempests and Warbands being of the same vein, you need others to facilitate your enjoyment. Like trading, you need to trade with me, I need to find you. Tempest, I need to trust that you tell me that core maps have of 1,000 items, whatever. I forget what the name of the Tempest were, but
Shining.
Shining or whatever. And then people would game the system, right? Because I've got 12 Malachi maps to sell, so we're gonna game the website that people are using. Someone hosted for free and was not hosted through GGG, which I thought was a mistake. Personally, the GGG didn't have its own tracking, and I think that all ties back to the trading because they don't have their own. You know what I mean? Like, so if the API comes along, I think that will alleviate a lot of these concerns. So it's one of the things where I want to see. I'm very excited to see what happens, and I hope they are this, just like you said, under promise, over delivered. They're doing something for API, and there's going to be this one other cool thing that they show us at the same time, and then I'll be happy.
I think it makes a lot of sense that GGG relies as an indie development team heavily on third-party software, and that's like been like more than like not even an excuse. It's been like completely reasonable that has been the past. But I do think I do hope now that the game is growing to the point where they can start to wean themselves off of that reliance in some regards, because way back at the start of the show, you said about like this idea of the level playing field, that there are players who know how to do these things and there are other players who don't. And although basically an auction house already exists in the game, it's just about whether you know or have overcome that hurdle to do that. And there is very much not that level playing field at the moment. And GGG has the potential to do that now, to create a much more level playing field. And I think that would be... I think it is now. I know I said this last league, so my opinion is my opinion is perhaps worth a little less because of it. But I do think it is the number one thing in the game right now. Is improvements to trading, is in potentially incorporating these things into the game in some fashion.
I want Jonathan's unit squarely on trading.
Yeah. On this subject, I think what's interesting about it, I want to use another word than interesting because we've said that a lot. But anyway, what's interesting about it is that GGG has already shown a willingness to incorporate integration, or seamless user use. Because one of the coolest things about Path of Exile when I first started playing it was the website and how you could link your items in a forum post and how that works. So they have things that does make it like, you could post all this stuff for trading, and then of course a third-party developer did come along, and that makes sense that we have someone who does things like that, and that we have this tool that could parse all the information on the forums and whatnot. So they've shown a willingness to do it, and to what Ziggy's saying, it is true that it makes sense for them to rely on the third-party, or not rely on it, but be reliant on that, because that allows them to further other development. But so I have a thought experiment now, okay? And I thought about this while we were chatting.
What do you think?
We all generally play challenge leagues, but I don't think we've really talked about this in the terms of a standard player, because I feel like trading in standard, not in hardcore, because I have my own issues with hardcore. Nobody plays hardcore because hardcore players play challenge leagues, but in standard. Now I wish we had a standard player on, because I feel like they might be able to offer something You know, I just don't know. Like, what if there are no challenge leagues? I know that's drastic. I know that's crazy, right? But
I'm going to string you up for that.
yeah,
For
yeah.
even suggesting such an idea. Like, I think that there's probably some interesting insights that a standard player could offer, but I think standard players are not the players we're talking about when we're talking about trade improvements. Because let's just say me, right? I'm someone who played almost 4,000 hours of this game now, by my calculations. And for me, the current trade system is fine. For me, I have no problems with the current trade system other than some minor annoyances like people are offline when I message them. A few fixes like that, cross-instance trading would be all I need to fully enjoy trading in this game. But these trade fixes I'm talking about are not for me. They're for what I perceive to be the long-term health of the game, and that's mostly to do with new players, to do with returning players and new people that come to the
That
game.
was weird.
That's what I think. That's who I think trade needs to be
Got some
improved
wands.
for, and I think that is not standard players. There's a reason why the default league is the current non-hardcore challenge league. It's
Right.
because I think that's a much, much better experience for the vast majority of new players. There's always going to be a couple of new players that join and want to start in standard, but like it makes sense to, even for their first character, even if they are joining the game for the first time and they're going to be a standard player long term, for them to start in a challenge league first off, and then just take that character standard and continue on it.
So, with that said, do you think that when a new player approaches Path of Exile, they see the challenge leagues and that's like the biggest draw for them? Like, because I know
I don't think they know it at that point. I don't think most new players know it at that point. And I think that's why GGG is like, this is the default league selected, so that they go, okay, I'll go with the recommended. Because most people play the recommended difficulty or the
Right.
recommended mode
Right.
by the developers. And that's like, it's very smart that GGG have done that. I'm glad they've done that. And that's why I'd always communicate to people. I'm always like, no, don't start in standard. It's not the normal game mode. The normal game mode is the challenge leagues.
Right.
Well, it's funny. It's always been a pet peeve of mine because I hate. Well, it's never going to change. This is the vernacular, right? But I hate calling it hardcore and standard because there's always a connotation that if you're a hardcore player, you're a better player, and I hate that. And that's coming from someone who's a purely hardcore player, right? I wish we would call it permanent and non-permanent death, but just because in this instance someone would hear that they're doing something wrong or whatever, and because I really wish that we didn't care at all what happened in standard and hardcore in terms of affecting the economy, right? Because I feel like that will sort itself out. It's about making the challenge league experience the best it possibly can, because that is, like Ziggy's saying, that's where people, I think, it seems like people start.
Yeah,
There.
sorry, standard players. I feel the same way, but
Yeah.
Yeah, and
you
I
guys have to deal with all of the runoff from the weird experiments in the challenge leagues.
well, yeah, and like Eternal still exists, and there's all these weird things going. Legacy items are all down there and stuff. So I feel like they're kind of like that right now. So it is kind of the wild west, and so we don't want to forget about them, but I can't make it the primary concern. And that's in the past when there's been something that's been really wrong with the challenge league. I get so agita about it because if this is their first experience, and they can't accomplish this thing. Yeah, that
I
really,
feel like the improvements that I want are the same improvements that most standard players would want. Is just
Yeah.
that, so that people are always listed online if they're online and offline if they're offline, and that they can trade cross instances and just the more minor things like that. I don't think most standard players really need the integration of these third-party software or asynchronous trading or anything like that. Really, maybe asynchronous would help some standard players because it is hard to catch people online, I guess. But
Right.
yeah, I think most of what we're talking about is for the newer players in challenge leagues.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think if they do some of these things with that in mind, I feel like it'll keep people happier longer. And even if they transition to standard, well, they know if they want to have this cool new experience, they just play the challenge league, which is what GGG wants anyway, right? Because at the end of the day, GGG wants to make money from us playing. Like I hope people out there, if you're watching this, that you buy some stash tabs.
Got the damage
'Cause that's how
scepter
you get
again.
the cool things. And if you want a cool new trading system, buy some stash tabs, then put your 2 cents in. That man, I'd buy even more stash tabs if I could trade, if trading was easier and that type of thing. So I think that GGG is clearly doing it. It's in their interest to have this done because it's affecting. It seems like it's affecting everyone, like you're saying, even people in standard at this point. They want some of this stuff done. So
I'm interested, if you guys don't have like a major new topic to bring up, to have a bit of a vote on some features that you guys would either like to see or not like to see in the game, and you guys can feel free to suggest certain features as well, and call a vote for them. So let's
Oh,
start
dear.
with the easy one, right?
Oh god,
Okay.
this is
Okay,
bad.
so let's say cross-instance trading. How do you guys feel about that? Moles?
I actually kind of think
no,
that
no,
that's
no.
not something I care about at all.
This
So
is
I
bad.
would put that as no at all, because I think that seeing people
I
in
think it's
town,
wasted development time.
I think that honestly I think that's wasted
Fuck.
development. Personally, for me, I understand it can be
Fuck.
annoying, but
Where's
I'm
the
out of
exit?
town and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
like we have a pretty good system. I was kind of gonna say yes,
What
but
is
you've
going
actually
on
kind of
over
swayed
there?
my vote a little bit because we get to see people's cool hideouts, and without a reason to go to people's hideouts, then GG's not going to sell their hideout. MTX, what's the point of hideouts?
Oh, thank God.
Like,
Right.
so you might have actually swung my vote.
Oh,
Same with me, because I was actually thinking the same thing. But then, right when you said, I started
Good
thinking about it,
damnation
like,
with
wait,
you.
It's just kind of wasted development time. That won't really solve anything as it is right now. I don't think.
it's a minor convenience at
Just
best, and
minor
has
convenience.
negative impacts to
Yeah.
the feel of community in the game. Like I love in a
It's gonna
race
be a
when
dead
everyone's
end.
running through the town at the start. Like,
yes. Yes. Love
to
that.
lose
That's such a
some of that
cool.
for trading, I guess, might actually be a little sad. It's not that big. It's not that big a pain in the ass to go to someone's hideout, really.
It's actually quite lovely if they have a nice hideout.
Yeah, I get to see so many cool hideouts, and a lot of the times I enter a hideout and there's a bunch of those naked exile dudes standing around me in a giant silver, and that's
Staring.
it's an
Yeah.
experience. It's you can't get that anywhere else.
That was
Hunted.
sad.
Well, there might be some sides for that. So I guess
Sad
I'll say no
Smash
then.
Bros.
Is that
Gee,
3
he's
no's
already
for that?
inclined.
no's.
Like
Uh-huh.
that's
I
how
did not
far
expect
behind.
that.
Well,
I
can
thought
I,
that was like the easiest
Just
thing.
because
to
that
go,
instance
yeah,
was
sure.
bad,
well,
But yeah.
can I have a
or
caveat?
because I
here?
read it wrong.
Somehow
Whatever.
I'm in
problem
game
is.
and you're on your phone or the website and you can click yes to trade. Like we're still trading. That's the type of asynchronous trading that I
That's a separate vote. So I guess we'll bring that up now.
like. Okay, fine.
Asynchronous trading. So allow me to explain that before we vote on it then. Asynchronous trading in that you can trade with either, I guess you can accept or send people offers via
Level
the website
7?
and in-game.
I'm
Maybe
dead.
like a phone app or something like that.
Literal
And
wall
maybe
of
even GGG
mobs.
doesn't develop the app. They just have the tool. Someone
I
else
wasn't
makes the
watching
app
my
for your
screen.
iPhone or whatever.
Or I would have had
But
to
yeah,
duck
but so
around
yes.
that way.
Third party. Yeah, yes.
Wow,
Yeah,
so many mobs.
Yes, I'm definitely in favor of that.
I was just looking at
Yeah,
something
I
different.
mean, there's a lot of other tools that exist for
And,
other games that
I didn't get any
exist on
points
your
either,
phone, and people
'cause
use
I'm
them a lot.
one mob
Really
kill
enjoy
away
them,
from
and it
5.
makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm a pretty decent
Yeah.
use for asynchronous training, even
Rip.
though it's kind of the same issue of what I was saying cross-instance trading. Like it is essentially cross-instance trading in another form, right? Like you're trading, you could be in your hideout and use the website to accept a trade, right? Like, or you use your phone. Maybe you have your phone set up next to you while you're playing the game. You don't leave your hideout to do a trade. So we will lose a little bit of going into people's hideouts. So
Yeah.
at that point, maybe cross-instance trading becomes like, if you've got this, why not have cross-instance trading too? Like it would make sense to have it. So even though I voted no for that, I'm still going to vote yes for this, even though it would probably result in me not getting the desired outcome for the last vote.
Well, see, and now you swung me back because if it was part of it, I would agree. Like, for instance, I started using Justice League PoE Whisperer, which I don't know if you've used or seen or whatever, where it pushes a text to your phone, and when somebody whispers you in game, just put the whole message. So, like, if I'm watching TV in the other room, I can leave this open, and someone's like, "Hey, I'd like to buy your, Chaos Ring of Swirling for 25 gas," and I'm like, "Yeah!" And I get up and run in here and trade
Awesome.
the trade and back to the TV, and like that's great. And I made at least 5, 6, 7, 8x this league that I would not have made in previous leagues because I didn't have the PoE Whispers. I feel like if we're getting to the point where we're resorting to those things, something like that helps some of that stuff, even though it's not I have to be at the computer to do something or whatever. There's still the person to person. It's just helping us a little bit with some quality. Like if you're at work, like people at work are automatically out. Like Hellman can't trade when he's at work, etc. So I feel like if he could trade a little bit, he'd be a little more engaged instead of being like, "Well, I'm done with the league because I'm back."
I think we all want this, but it does kind of go back to our earlier point that they need to implement these things slowly, one by one, because
Right.
if everyone is making 7 to 8 extra results per league, then that's going to have a big impact on gearing and crafting and all of those things that we talked about in this show. So it is something that needs to be done cautiously, because even a change like that, which can be seen as just purely a convenience trade, has a big impact on the economy because there is a lot more trade happening on. Sheer volume will change the economy.
Well, I think that's why I've been so binky about it. I think maybe you are just a little bit too, because we perceive it has to be done slowly and steadily. The fact that it hasn't been going on for the past year, right? If every league they want to do one small change, well, we're already 3 leagues later and not much has happened, so that we know it's going to be 3 more leagues before we get to the meat, right? Of
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if they had have been every league doing some sort of
just
change,
tiny.
yeah, they have done a few little things, like a few little API improvements and stuff like that, but not actually like one thing each league. Like, if that had been happening, I doubt we'd even be having this show. Like,
No, I don't think so.
I think we'd be like, oh, cool, I'm satisfied with this. This has been a good change, or this has been a bad change. We'd be talking about the changes, in our regular shows. We wouldn't be having a show dedicated to trading.
Yeah, this has definitely come up for the lack of changes.
Yeah, just because it's been so long now without any real significant changes. But we
Yeah.
are on the verge of getting some, so hopefully they're starting this trend now.
I mean, with your idea, I just want to be able to make a trade while I'm in the shower. If I get a little, on my S5 and it's waterproof, I'm like, oh, trade, cool, 2x, thanks. That was the best shower.
Anyway,
'Cause I can't necessarily run out of the shower.
trades.
Yeah.
As long as there's a checkbox for not being able to trade with people while they're in the shower, because I
Right,
don't want
No new
Safety.
No new trades.
to.
All right, what's the next one?
Okay, so all right, that was a yes for that one then, 3 yeses. So the next thing was the integration of listing buyouts on items and tabs in game. So basically, instead of going to an external application, you can right-click on the tab, right-click on the item, and add a buyout. And GGG implements that as part of their own system. It automatically creates a shop thread, and it's automatically passed by PoE Trade.
It makes sense. We have it already, just outside the game.
Now running out of mobs, man.
That's really it. I would be curious. Is that something that would be very hard? That's what I always hate, that we don't have just a GGG person here to be like, no, that's stupid. That would take us 50 million hours to do that, and here's why.
Yeah, we have to
Run out.
accept a certain amount of armchair development here
No.
because we're like, oh, that would be
Come on,
easy.
30 more seconds.
No, I don't think any of this would be
Drag and
easy.
drop the
Don't
application
run
in
out
the
of
game,
mobs.
can't they?
There's a
Yeah, I
back
know.
in there.
Right,
The making
right,
the game wasn't easy. Yeah, like
right.
there's definitely armchair developing an opinion to it.
Well, and it's funny from
Gotta
using
make it
acquisition.
full-time.
Sometimes people come to my stream and I'll put something in the 25 chaos tab, and they'll go, "Are you out of your mind, Moors?" And I'll say, "Well, actually, this is now the 12 chaos tab because I slowly lower prices over the league for things."
I'm saying,
But if I change the name of the tab,
mad?
acquisition, it doesn't.
fucking mad,
Well,
bros.
maybe it does now. Before, if you change the name of it to 12 chaos, you had to then go back into acquisition and change the buyout.
Why the fuck you
Like another thing. So it was just like, rather
You
than every
always
time I change the
lying.
buyout, I know I changed it in acquisition
Stop
to this, and then I
fucking
never.
lying.
It's just not reflected on my tabs in the game, which of course can lead to you mislisting things. So if GGG could handle it, so it's all done on their end, I think that would be.
Got
that
so
would
many
be
blue
amazing,
packs
but
in upper,
I'm
and I never
so in
ran out
favor
of
of
mobs
that, but
somehow. It was
I
like a
can't believe that
perfect
would be easy to
circle.
They should only be in premium stash tabs.
The lower was pretty shitty.
No, I'm joking. Totally joking.
No, you know what? Like, I'm in favor of stuff like that. Like it is. And this is where I'm probably a snob since I'm a diamond supporter. But it's like, it doesn't make me better than anybody. I just feel like I have a little bit more right to be like, why is this not happening? Because I've ponied up and been like, I want to play this game for 5 or 10 more years. Like I'm not doing it times. I'm not doing that every expansion. That was a one-time thing. But I just mean I've paid my $50 a year to play PoE for the next 10 years, and I hope that people would understand if they gate things behind that. It seemed to be a very good response to the Flave of the Month MTX, right? So as long as they say, look, we're going to make it so it's easier to do stuff with acquisition, but it has to be a premium tab. That's just to fund the development. That's what we had to do. I think if they're upfront about it, I don't know. I'd be the first person on Reddit with my sword out as a white knight, chopping down the people who are complaining about it, because I tell them to shut up.
I think as long as they had like a tab or something that you could trade with, and then you could buy more, I would be fine with them selling stuff like that. Like I honestly think, like on a slightly different topic, that GGG could be doing so much more with MTXs. Why don't they sell an MTX skin for every new skill they release at the time they release it? Why don't they sell stuff based on meta? And Chris recently said, like, maybe we should be doing that. We thought you guys would have a problem with that. I'm like, no, make money. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Make some money.
We don't like the Razor MTX because that was jarring, right? Like that was bad. I'd rather them sell out in the vein of the game. That's
Well,
what
I think they won't be doing that again.
no. That was they learned. No, and that's why
That was a test.
That was a test. I appreciate that. That's one thing I'll say about GGG. They do get it right eventually, right? Like that's one reason I'm for however much I might complain. I'll still be here tomorrow. I might yell today, but I'll come back tomorrow because I feel like it will get resolved. So, and it's next.
3 yeses.
Okay.
Right?
All right, that was good. 3 yeses for that, I think. Yeah, yes, with the caveat of like, not if it costs them like 3 years worth of budget to do it or something, right? Obviously. So the next one then is the flip side of that: PoE trade integration into GGG's website, and or I guess they're into the game in some fashion. So having a tab you can open up and browse items in game as well. So the flip side of that, essentially.
I'm going to say no.
Interesting.
I'll explain why.
I'll come back to you after Moors says, and we'll.
I guess I would want to know how it was done.
User joined your channel.
Right? Like if it was something where it's like you click the bazaar.
Ready
button,
to play?
it just feels like there'd be too much. That I would just say no, just because I feel like the amount of effort required instead of just making their own system would be
No.
prohibitive.
I don't
Right?
know what
Integrating
that's
thing
game.
and making it
Okay.
fit.
You've
That
given
makes
me an
sense.
interesting thought that maybe we'll take a step back for a sec first and separate this out into 2 votes. Maybe. What about just literally taking the site, hiring the guy?
Microphone muted.
Attention, prisoners! For your crimes against Oriath, you have been exiled. I fought, wept, and bled for God and the Order. I would have died for my Templar brothers, every single one. And how do they reward my piety?
Look like a blip blow.
Microphone activated.
What this game? how you I know, how know the level this game? What you waiting for? Mm. Cool.
And putting the site PoE Trade on the Path of Exile website. So instead of when you click shops, instead of it going to a list of shitty forum threads that you're never going to get anything done in, it actually just brings up like that. Like there's basically a shop button that goes to PoE Trade on the GGG website. So it's not a third-party site.
I'm in favor. I'm in favor of something like that. Whether or not they would do it,
What class should I play? I can't decide. Ah!
30 seconds.
It's just started for me. So yeah, it's like 28 seconds delay.
Even death gives no solace in this
10.
tortured
Oh
world.
shit. I dropped the gem.
What this look like to survive?
Yeah,
Zombie, zombie.
crabs. Wait till you see this guy. Shit. Go fast, go fast, go fast. Cast speed, that'll do.
What in God's name is that
What in God's name is that smell?
I don't know what this.
So, I kill as much stuff as I can in 10 minutes. Try to get the most EXP that I can. But just 10
No
minutes.
XP? No level?
Yeah,
this
levels.
game?
Yeah. You'll see. I
Mhm.
level up soon for you. See it?
Yeah, I see it.
Ding! I need to go faster. Ow. Oh my god. If my family comes in here, I can't mute my mic. So sad. Is it down here? Yeah. Oh, people dying.
Kill that.
You see the yellow messages? That's all the people died. Need the totem. Uh,
Welcome.
oh, never lucky, dude.
My prayers are thus answered.
There's so many mobs. Ouch. No, wrong way. Ah! Mana, shield, and Ellie res. Yeah. Oh my god. Fuck. There's so many.
The path becomes clearer with each bloody step.
You die, you die.
Nope. Not today. Shit. We're just trying to.
Fuck's a celebrity. I guess I must invest in the proper form of protection. And I say it's a curse, but it's still mostly a blessing to a nigga from the hood. Trying to aim for the top. I didn't even
Oh my god, that was bad.
just wake up and then I roll up the perk. But these niggas wake up on my dick. At least have some breakfast first. Nigga, keep your nourishment first.
I'm just gonna run. Just run, just run. I need higher level mobs to kill. Go, go, go. It's your turn. To hurt so much.